speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart, speaking moistly.
Welcome everyone to Speaking Moistly. With me as usual is Greg. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Mark, how are you? Good to be back.
Good to be back, ready for another lockdown. Are you ready?
I've been born ready. Yeah.
Oh man, I was bored for this, baby. I've got VR ready. The holodeck is loaded and ready to go. I just bought a new program. Yeah, the world is a crazy place. I kind of want to look at where we've been and where we are right now, kind of take stock of where we've been and where we are now. So a year ago, this is March 2020, and Greg, we found these before the show started in the green room there. But March 2020, Ontarians told to lock down to prevent further community spread of COVID-19. March 2020, that was the first lockdown. And we thought 14 days to flatten the curve. How naive were we, right? Foolish, fools, fools. And then in May 14th, this is 2020, not 2021, right? I don't have a time machine yet. But as Doug Ford announces plans for stage 1 of easing COVID-19 restrictions. Is Ontario ready? Clearly not. Clearly not, because today, Ford government will announce an Ontario-wide stay-at-home order. They don't call it a lockdown today, but stay-at-home order, same thing. Non-essential retail will be restricted to curbside pickup only. Big box stores will be restricted to essential aisles only. You can now. The Ford government knows what's essential for us now, right? What if I need underwear? What if I need undies? What if I need a new pair of jeans? What if I rip my jeans? Not essential. Not essential. Sources tell 680 News. So we are in a situation where a year ago you could say, okay, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, then we'll have some data we can deal with and we can open up and we can, by May or June, everything will be kind of back to normal, right? And then during this, sometime between the second and third lockdown, right after the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then the lockdown in Toronto in October, and then the expansion of the lockdown in December for the whole province, and then we had about 45 days of being open, and now we're back to lockdown with zero civil liberties and online school and a rushed vaccine that isn't really a vaccine by the legal definition of vaccine. We have no joy or even a court date for Rocco Galati's court or Rocco's action on the masks. We have employers demanding vaccines for work. We have the Chicago Mets. Is it Chicago? The Mets? I don't know if it's Chicago. That's the Bears in Chicago, isn't it? And it doesn't matter. We have a baseball team called the Mets, New York, asking for vaccine passports to enter the stadium or antigen testing. We've got businesses saying we want to reopen, and business leaders like Chambers of Commerce and the CFIB saying we want antigen testing. We are normalizing passports. We're watching other countries normalize passports. We have outsourced the ability to assess our own health status to tests that we know are flawed. Is there any end to this? Or have I encapsulated it? And I mean, have I made you feel terrible?
Well, I think the key point here of reflecting on the news items from a year ago is how far we have come and how much the language has changed.
Yeah.
Because in that one article, Ontarians, lockdown is in quotes. Lockdown. Oh, this new thing called the lockdown. What is a lockdown? I don't know. And then they also call it community spread. They don't use community spread anymore. It's outbreak. Outbreak. There's been an outbreak. And it's much more intense and inflammatory language now. And as you were kind of pointing out, it's the idea of a lockdown, it's in kind of like these scare quotes. But now a year later, it's like there's restrictions here, there's restrictions there. You can't go there, and it's just matter of fact. There's no air quotes anymore. No, it's just this is a matter of fact. By the way, vaccine passports are coming down the tubes as well.
Yeah,
it's crazy to see how far we've come. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to do this comparison is to kind of show how it's like, what has changed in terms of the best practices on dealing with these, on these airborne viruses. And it's like, when you ask that question, it's like, well, it's almost like nothing of any sort of like merit has come up. Nothing in terms of, oh, well, we found this is more better or that's better. No, it's just like, you know what? We found more ways to take your rights away. Mm-hmm. We've found more restrictions for you. It's like, the biggest differences are just like the freedoms we don't have anymore,
Yeah.
and the ways in which they control us. In terms of actually better managing a virus, that's not.
Yeah.
Who cares?
But even just looking at the masks. So when this thing broke out a year ago, by May, the first mask mandate wasn't enacted until
Right.
July 12th of 2020. And
Was it July?
it was
Oh, wow.
July 12th. That was when Guelph enacted the Section 22 order, because whatever. But I can't remember why exactly, but the cases were falling at that point in time and continued to fall. And they used this as proof. There were things posted in the Lancet, and then after the summer, when inevitably the seasonality of the 2021 flu season hit,
Yep.
then the cases started to increase, and the masks were being worn by about 90% of people. I mean, more than 90%. Can you imagine 10% of people not wearing a mask in like Walmart? There'd be riots, especially in the south end of Guelph. Like that doesn't happen. I don't go to the mall, right? Like, I don't do these things. I go to the grocery store. That's basically it. And people don't like that I don't wear a mask. And I mean, well, sorry, man. I have an exemption. It's a valid legal exemption, and it needs to be respected. And I'm not trying to infringe on other people's rights, but the mask order being in place did not reduce that flu season. I mean, maybe it did reduce that flu season, but it didn't reduce it enough to avoid two lockdowns. And the ICU numbers are not, and I can back this up with Roman Baber here. I knew I wanted to reference this one. Roman Baber in this clip, and I'm not going to play the clip, but he asks the health minister, he makes a statement saying our ICUs are at 80% capacity. Typically ICUs are run at higher percent, and typically hospitals have over 100% capacity. But Roman Baber says we're running at 80% capacity and it's being managed well. Why are we locking people down? The minister says, yeah, it is 80% capacity. We're managing it well. And, we need to continue to manage it well. That doesn't mean locking everybody down. The masks didn't stop 2 lockdowns. So how good are they? And you can't say, just in case somebody says, well, without masks, it would have been worse. Texas, Florida, Sweden, and there are many other examples where you can look at that, and they didn't have mass deaths. They didn't have more deaths than usual, and that's the only thing that matters. Somebody tried to come at me with cases. They're like, oh, they had this many cases, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, but their deaths are in line with normal, right? Like, for the most part. I think Sweden is a little bit up from normal, but there were reasons for that with immigration. But we're in a situation where the mask efficacy, the guidance has changed dramatically to that they work, and of course they work, and you better wear one. But after a year, they don't have data to back this up. They have nothing to back this up, right? It's wild.
Yeah, and the mask conversation is funny in the context of the flu, because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but wasn't like there a drastic reduction in flu?
Yeah. The
amount of flu cases in Canada, it's gone to virtually down to like nothing. Like usually it's like thousands and thousands, and it was like, like 100 or like a dozen or something like this.
There's none.
And
there's still none in Guelph.
Right. And then people will say, well, that's because we were wearing masks. And it's like, okay, so the flu doesn't go through the mask, but COVID does go through the mask. It's kind of proving the point that the mask doesn't work for COVID anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's white supremacist logic.
Yeah. I mean, logic itself is actually an invention of white supremacy. Yeah. Math as well.
Yeah. Any system, right? Any system built by, right? Of course, that's new racism. Okay, back to the COVID vaccines, or into the COVID vaccines. This person wants to be the Prime Minister of Canada after literally a year of completely ineffective lockdowns, 2 failed lockdowns in Ontario, the biggest economic engine, or one of the economic engines of the country, shutting down again because of a regular flu season, because some medical officers of health decide that their jurisdiction needs to be shut down. Aaron O'Toole doubles down and says, without the Liberals' slow vaccine rollout means more lockdowns. This is naked threats from the guy who's supposed to replace Justin Trudeau. Right, sure. Even if Justin Trudeau were doing a bad job, I think probably Aaron O'Toole would do a worse job. Like, he doesn't. I don't know. What do you think?
It's continually baffling to me how the Conservative Party has just been like, yeah, man, we all got to get vaccinated. Like, they haven't said that, but they have implied that strongly.
Yeah, Michelle
that
Rumpel's,
it's kind of just like, whoa. Like, so you guys aren't even going to, okay. Like you're just going full on. Okay, everyone's got to get vaccinated. This is the only way. And I mean, it reminds me of Doug Ford. It reminds me of Doug Ford and how he's like, "Yeah, I'm for the little guy. I'm for the little guy." I really love this new Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
This new Tim Hortons. It's like a real, like, you know, it's double speak. You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth.
All the time.
You have a parted tongue or whatever they say.
Forked tongue. Yeah.
Forked tongue. There we go. Thanks.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting as well that there is absolutely no accountability for the medical officers of health for the damage they're doing with regards to the schools, right? The Toronto one and I guess I'm getting off topic there, but all of the impact of the lockdowns. Oh, opposition is what I wanted to talk about. All of the impact of the lockdowns, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of pushback on it. There doesn't seem to be like anybody. No. And I was lamenting about this in my show today too. Like there doesn't seem to be. Usually, an opposition will have like a big stack of papers, like this is why we shouldn't do it this way. There's a debate,
right.
like right. And I think I'm the one debating. Like Roman Baber, me, a couple of Ezra Levent, and some
Randy
things.
Hillier,
Randy Hillier, certainly.
Max Bernier.
There's lots of people.
Handful of
people.
Yeah,
a handful of people. Derek Sloan, but I don't think any of them are as.
It's really
Baber.
It's demoralizing. It's pathetic. Like I've suspected in the past, like, the Conservative Party feels like controlled opposition. You know, like they're completely compromised. But I've never felt that more than moments like now, because it's like, oh man, the slow vaccine rollout means more law, and it's like, so literally, there's no difference between, you know what, you're a fatter version of Trudeau at this point.
Yeah,
you know, you're a greasier, fatter version of Trudeau.
Yeah, and I heard that on a podcast, Michelle Rempel was talking about how they didn't have much access to Aaron O'Toole. He was making decisions like with a small group of advisors and a small number of cabinet ministers. So I thought that was interesting. But all of that speaks to how poor a rollout that O'Toole has done after taking control of the party. He's done a really terrible job, and I can't believe that nobody has capitalized on this. Nobody has capitalized on it. The organizations that should be capitalizing on this, nothing. It's very interesting. Like the NDP are they picking seats up because O'Toole's terrible? No, because they're just as terrible and they're offering absolutely no difference. I can't see the energy.
I feel like NDP is just like a testing ground for like zanier, wackier leftist ideas. Like they're like, hey, let's get rid of the military. How about that, huh? And then Elizabeth May will be like, hold my beer. You know, let's get rid of gender. Oh, gender, no more gender.
Oh,
whoa.
Goodness me. Did you see that there was a travel advisory for Canada from the United States? Don't travel to Canada. The variants are out of control. You could get COVID. Canada.
No, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, it's on. It's on Canada Report. It's not. I could grab it out. Maybe I'll.
I've been told that I must be very, 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 very afraid, though.
Oh, yeah? Do people tell you that? That's funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I was talking to my mom. She's like, the variants hang in the air. They have little helicopters on them, and they're hanging in the air longer.
This is the 2021 version of the Seinfeld mom conversation, right? Like, oh, the variants are in the air, Jerry. Okay, Mom. Right.
Well, the way she described it, I'm like, this sounds like a Marvel movie. You know, this sounds like the sequel, and like the enemy's gotten stronger. Like, oh my God.
Empire Strikes Back. The virus will win.
That being said, this is not a popular opinion. You probably won't like me having this opinion, but I think we do need to be wary of a stronger, more actually deadly virus. Because if I've learned anything over the past year, whether through incompetence or corruption, it is possible to infect most of the world with a virus. You know? We have all these infrastructure in place. We have all these organizations in place that are supposed to be protecting us, supposed to be sounding the alarm bells whenever there's a virus going around. And what did they say? Oh, worrying about that is racist. And now the entire world has been infected with this virus. So whether through incompetence or corruption, that can happen. You know,
I have a third option for you, sir. If you turned off the TV, and if everybody stopped talking about COVID-19 and took off the masks,
I would love that.
How would you know? Like, would you know that it was a pandemic? Like, there was a time during I watched videos. So you got to be wary of our history, because the fictional interpretations of history become history in a way that's kind of, you feel like you've seen it, right? But anyway, I've seen videos and I've seen images from plagues and other things on, real on news broadcasts, so as real as that is, and on movies and all that. Have you seen the movie Wag the Dog? Okay, never mind. But I've seen these things, and they were putting up white flags with like don't come in here, there's plague, oh no, there's plague, right? And people are worried about the plague, and you don't go in there. And you would know if there was a deadly pandemic around, because people would behave in a way that there was a deadly pandemic. They wouldn't need the restrictions that are being imposed upon them, because they would have a first-hand knowledge of it, right? Like they would say, like, my neighbor lost, a kid and their husband. Like my the school teacher's dead. Like we'd have first-hand accounts of this, and that's not happening. That's the first-hand accounts are, Jerry got tested for COVID and he had to spend 2 weeks at home, and he was a little for a day,
I mean, there are other cases, but usually the person has underlying conditions, or it's like, what I like to call like a medical anomaly. And like they'll take these medical anomalies and be like, oh, a young person had a stroke, it was because of COVID. And it's like, or this person lost their sense of smell because of COVID. And it's like, people used to have really bad flu cases and they would lose their sense of smell. Like that happened before COVID-19 was a thing. But you're right. And I think the irony is, by scaring the crap out of everybody and creating all these lockdown conditions, it's actually making us weaker and less healthy and less like even more susceptible to this virus to begin with. Like it's not doing anyone any favors.
No, I totally agree with you, and it's a sad state of affairs to be in, because people have bought into this. I see people walking. I walk down the street, and some people just cross. Like if you're walking towards somebody, they'll just
it's crazy.
People,
it's
jump
crazy
off the sidewalk, walk on the road.
It's crazy the like hysterical energy that you'll pick up from people these days.
Man, yeah.
But it's always nice to see. It's always nice to see people just like being themselves and not being total freakazoids.
Yeah. I think that it's really interesting how people have come to believe that it is safer to run into the road than it is to walk by somebody on a sidewalk. Like it's like, oh, okay, that was an interesting situation. Good choice. Did you look both ways before you jumped onto the roadway there? Do what you got to do, man. Keep yourself safe.
I hate to say it, that's probably happened.
Oh man,
somebody's probably avoided being too close to someone and injured themselves in the Oh my god,
buddy, that's a fresh COVID death and 2 positive tests, right?
That's
2 cases of the fresh COVID deaths. You are not seeing the opportunity there's a diamond in the rough there, man. Diamond in the rough. Okay, this is awesome, says Amanda Galbraith. Vaccination at the mosque during prayers. More of this, please. Hashtag more of this. I was like, yes, please, hashtag more of this. The first poster says COVID-19 vaccine clinic for residents of Thorncliffe Park who are 40 plus. 40 plus. Okay. Friday, April 9th, 2021, during Juma prayers, 12:30 to 5 p.m. while supplies last. Okay. And then the other version that doesn't say during Juma prayers, that's hard to say, during Juma prayers, excuse me, there we go. But it talks about the one on Saturday. I guess there's no Juma prayers on Saturday. But it says for residents of Thorncliffe Park. So how are they getting, no, let's not ask questions. Let's just embrace this new love of having, good vaccines during religious periods. And that's great, right? They're doing it.
Yeah.
Christian church is being raided and fences being put up around it in Alberta because they defied the lockdown orders.
That's a pretty interesting Okay, keep going.
It is. No, you're right. No, hold on. It's a pretty interesting juxtaposition. I just want to...
Okay. Are you paused?
No, I'm not paused. I just played my Price is Right horn song. Sorry. Okay, now you could give your opinion. Go.
I was going to say, it's a very interesting juxtaposition, isn't it? And what really bothers me about this vaccine poster is it doesn't say what type of vaccine it is. It doesn't say if it's AstraZeneca, it's just like, oh, it's some vaccine clinic. Come get your COVID vaccine. Yeah. I don't know. What's really too bad about the vaccine situation is that we'll never really know probably what the general population is thinking about this thing. Because you talk to different people, you get a different opinion from everybody. And they'll come up with this they'll come out with the study. Oh my God, like 99.9% of Canadians can't wait to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's quite a big number. How did you conduct that study?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's too bad because I feel like we'll never really know how we all feel about this. And the way in which social media is so censored and kind of slanted these days, it's hard to really communicate with Canadians as a whole, even have a conversation about how people feel about this. And, you know, the most popular, loudest kind of voice or thing that we hear is like, oh, everyone's getting it. No, well, you can even get it at your mosque. And there just seems to be no pause. There seems to be very little pause, very little kind of like, let's reflect on this. Let's talk about this.
The only way, no, that's not the plan. The plan is to continually drive chaos. And if it's not driving chaos, like we can't solve a problem. If we solve a problem, that's not driving the narrative. The whole point is to keep us in complete chaos until we're begging to be taken out of it by any means necessary. They're going to bankrupt us. They're going to starve us. They're going to do everything they can
right.
to.
It's what is it again? It's order out of chaos.
Yeah, that's it. But they want us to beg for it. It's not enough. It's not enough to do it to us. You have to get it to the point of the population begging for it, because then they won't rebel.
Right.
That's why.
Sweet. Good stuff.
Well, you know, I mean, when you do things like this, like when you allow a thorn, like, I mean, are there going to be a lot of people at the mosque showing up for the vaccine? Are there going to be a lot of extra people who are praying at the same time? Have Juma prayers continued this whole time during lockdowns and not? Like this, is this canceled now? Right? Like this is 12/15, so the lockdown hadn't been announced yet. But we were under lockdown orders anyway. This is just a stay-at-home order. Going out to get your vaccine would be seen as essential. Would getting your prayer or having prayers be seen as essential? Very interesting way around this. How come this mosque gets it? Why doesn't a church get it? Like, what's special about this mosque to get vaccines to administer? And I'm not saying this is terribly bad, but if these guys can do it, why can't the other churches open and do it too?
Well, maybe it's just that. Maybe it's the fact that since the person at the mosque was like, yeah, we'll have vaccines here. They're like, okay, great, the mosque is open. But if the church is like, we don't want to give vaccines here, they're like, well, you're closed. So basically, you're going to be open or closed depending on if you're jabbing people or not.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's folly as well. I think that's a poor way to make a law, and I don't know if that's true.
Of course,
or anything like that.
Of course.
It's a situation where we are under tyranny's boot heel, and there isn't a recourse that seems obvious. There isn't a way to address this that seems like we can meaningfully make headway against this problem in the time that we have, because by the time we make headway against this problem, it's been a year. There's no joy on those masks. Like emergency injection on the mask thing, right? It's not legal.
The funny thing about the vaccine situation right now is that everyone's talking and hyping up the variants, and no one's really talking about, are these vaccines gonna prevent the variants? Is there gonna be a new vaccine? Like, that conversation's not really being had.
No, for sure.
And it's like, and what I've kind of been saying, hey guys, the reason why I don't want to get this vaccine, the reason why I'm standing against it, is because first of all, it's like Service Ontario or Service Canada having access to my biology at the drop of a hat. Oh, you want to get a new sticker on your license plate?
Yep.
Now you have to do that with your whole immune system. You need to get a new vaccine. Like the president that's trying to be set here is creepy. And everybody should be creeped out. Yeah. I don't want Service Ontario having access to my biology. No.
Well, that goes, and it totally goes right back to what I was saying at the beginning, that we've farmed out the ability for our ability to say that we're healthy. We are not allowed to say that we're healthy if we're healthy. We have to say, I don't have a test yet. So we farmed it out to this flawed test. What kind of insane people do this? Like, that's not a sane way to behave.
And people compare, the yellow, what is it, yellow fever? you need to get a vaccine passport to go to Africa because of yellow fever. And it's like, well, first of all, the death rate of yellow fever is not comparable to COVID. And second of all, there's a huge difference between, if I am going to a certain place that, I'm sorry, is like a less developed place that has a lot of diseases going around, yeah, okay, that's one thing. But to make it completely mandatory for every human being on the planet for something that has a fairly low death rate, like, this is a huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Well,
And it's like, I just want to go buy some sweet granny apples from the grocery store, you know, and like I need to get injected with something. Like, it's crazy how people try to do logical gymnastics around it.
Yeah, mental gymnastics.
Mental
your
gymnastics,
your
thanks.
social credit score is not high enough. Sorry about your luck. You can't buy those Granny Smith apples. You have to only shop via proxy through somebody else, right? Because
Yeah.
your social credit score is too low.
And you would think that, you know, normies would have a little bit more kind of faith or be listening a little bit more to us conspiracy theorists, considering like we've kind of been like on the money
I have
for the past
okay.
past 6 to 9 months.
I have a theory on this. Do you want to know my theory?
People will not even consider things that they cannot accept. But
No.
keep going.
Yeah, kind of like that. So,
Yeah.
okay. My son fell from, and he's okay now, but he fell from a play structure.
Treehouse.
He got a big black
Okay.
eye. Yeah, it was a treehouse thing, and he fell and he got a big black eye. And I felt shitty about it because I should have known that he could have fallen, and I should have not let him go up there. But that's not what 5-year-old boys do, and that's not what good dads do, because you have to let them experience the dangers of the world. But he fell, and there was nothing that we could do about it but respond, right? And it was undeniable. It was there. I was the parent. I had to do something. We had to deal with it, right? And we dealt with it, and he was okay and moved on. And it could have been very bad. It might have been a hospital visit and all that other stuff, but we had to deal with it. If you can avoid dealing with the bad thing that happens, you're going to avoid dealing with the bad thing that's happening, right? If you don't understand what's happening, it's easy to look away and distract yourself with something else. If somebody comes to you and says, look at all these key markers, blah, 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 you can say, that's really complicated. It sounds like a conspiracy theory. I'm going to ignore you. And even if you understand what's happening, if you don't see it as a clear and present danger, if you don't say to yourself, this is happening to me right now, I have to deal with this thing that's just happened. Even if you see it that way, you might not deal with it that way, right? And it's like, it's so insidious because by the time it's obvious that there's a big problem, the trap's shut. It's closed. You can't get out, right? Like there's a military blockade in the road, or there's flight restrictions. Oh, we're there already, right? Or you're on a no-fly list.
I follow, but I don't understand the analogy with your son falling.
The analogy is the falling is the catastrophe that happened, and it's undeniable, right? Like it's a very like. I had to deal with that.
It's something in your environment that's very clear, like something went wrong.
Well, it was my responsibility. I had to deal with it, right? But if it's not as clear that it is your responsibility, and
it's
like,
easy to ignore.
You can just carry on, right? Like that doesn't have anything to do with me, right? But like because it does have something to do with me, it's catastrophic. And it's an undeniable thing. I didn't want it to happen, but it did happen, and then I had to deal with it, right? And I'm saying that what is happening right now to our country is as catastrophic as. Not my son's fall because that's a bad analogy, but it is as catastrophic as a bad accident happening. And if you don't engage with it, that's also a choice, right? If you keep walking, if you see a car accident in front of you and you've got hearing headphones on and you see that a train may be coming to hit you, and you don't do anything to stop this, that is also a choice, right? Like it may be
I think you're right. I think deep down people know something's off. They know something's wrong, but to actually confront that and to actually look at it, it's like that's too much work. I'd rather just ignore it.
Yeah, and it would take a lot of work because it would take undoing a lot of the not the brainwashing necessarily, but the brainwashing. The media always talking about things. It's taken years. My mom's
a lot of things.
Trump.
A lot of things you take for granted. It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah, it's like the foundation of the society, right? It's really really interesting. Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap it up here.
Yeah, man, you're right. Oh, look at that timing. Although. No bus today, so it's all good. All right. Well, thank you for coming and chatting with me. I think it's important to have these kind of conversations. I think it's important to talk about this kind of stuff. All right. Where can they find you, Greg? Do you have any last words, and where can they find you?
Yeah, find me on my YouTube channel, Greg Wycliffe. Find me on Twitter and TikTok at GDub, GDDUB. Thanks for having me.
Nice. And you can find me at CanadaPoly.com and CanadaReport.co. That's where I have my scratch pad and all of the things I'm kind of working on. And you can find our back catalog at SpeakingMoistly.co. I got the notification that the URL is renewing. So we've been at this long enough for the website URL to have to renew. Figure that
Nice.
one out. That's kind of cool. Eh? All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll have the Prime Minister be awful because he's awful. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. We'll see you guys next week. Greg, next week? Oh, he's out. He's like, fuck this. I'm gone. All right. Speaking moistly. We'll see you next week.
Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Oh, what a terrible image.